I'm kind of an embarrassing person, like at my core.
I was ready for this one. I knew Dalton would pull this one out.
I'm not sure you guys are gonna let me tell it.
I went to some event and I guess you could say overserved myself, was really enjoying the time. It was great. And afterwards we took the party to an after party at a karaoke bar. And I have some go-tos, like One Week by the Bare Naked Ladies is just one of my go-tos. I could sing it backwards and forwards. I don't look at the screen. I make a big theatrical thing of it. Well, I got up there and was, just a little overserved, and I just forgot all of the words. But I also was very territorial of the microphone, and so when someone came up and tried to help me and was like, she knows all the words, talking about some other girl, I screamed into the microphone, I know all the words. And it was humiliating. I stood there the entire time and let the music play out in its entirety and didn't say a single word. So that would probably top the charts for me.
I had a barbecue, but I didn't have any food. All my friends made fun of me. It was just alcohol. I called it a barbecue though, and everybody's like, yo, how do you have a barbecue with no food? That's very embarrassing, but hey, it is what it is. You have buy a new house when you're 22, liquor is food. Liquor and food are the same thing to you.
In elementary school, we were told when somebody's talking to you to look up, and I really took that to heart. And I'm looking up because somebody's really talking to me, and I don't want to get in trouble. And I walked into a pole and lost one of my teeth. Bad thing I lost a tooth. Good thing I got tooth fairy money. So, it happens.
I'm a teacher, and so one day in school, I'm just walking down the hallway and I feel this little breeze on my butt. And thank goodness another teacher caught me and is like, Miss Young. And I turned around like, yes, I'm really in a rush. What's up? I'm on my way to teach another class, and they're just like, your butt is hanging out. And it was so embarrassing because it's like I'm in the middle of the school and I teach with middle schoolers. So thank goodness a middle schooler didn't catch my butt hanging out. But that's probably one of the most recent stories that was just a little embarrassing to, have your skirt unzipped and stuff falling out.
One time I went to my friend's house. We were going to a Halloween party. I had my little Darth Vader suit on. I was looking fresh. I was looking fly. About to pop into the party like just an absolute monster. As soon as I stepped out of the car, like we walk up to the door. As soon as my friend mom opens the door, I just pee everywhere. I just pee all over myself. Pee just starts running down my leg. The friend's mom sees the pee. I have to borrow my friend's pajamas, these little Star Wars pajamas. So everybody was sitting there asking me why I didn't have a costume on. And, my friend, he knew it was his pajamas. He knew what happened, but I had to just sit there and lie and say, this is my costume.
Pretty good at laughing at myself, so before I even get embarrassed, I would have laughed so hard, like, at the end of the day, it becomes funny. But I think I've fallen flat on my face a couple of times before. One at an event going to receive an award, I literally tripped on a cable and fell flat on my face. And also cycling out in a group, I was trying to stay on track and went tumbling with my bike and got a big gash on my leg and in front of a whole bunch of people. But in both situations, I think I started laughing first just because of how hilarious it was.
When I was standing here waiting for you to call me, I saw a coconut that looked like a mango, and I was like, why is there a mango on that coconut tree? And then I was like, that's something that I'll probably say on the show, and people will just laugh at me because I say random things and I'm super clumsy sometimes. So that was embarrassing to me because, I'm over here on Survivor thinking that I will know everything about the island and the coconuts and the trees, but I'm over here wondering why there's a mango on a coconut tree.
I first moved to Hawaii, and I had moved into a new apartment that was a long walk across the park to the beach. And I had met some, new friends, people that are still my best friends to this day, but it's like the first time I had met them. And we had gone down to the beach and we barbecued and drank some beers and we was hanging out, laughing, giggling. And, the beach closed at 10 and it's time to leave. And I'll never forget, we all left, they got in their cars. I drove, I walked home and I got into the middle of this park. And it's a massive park where when you get to the middle of the park, you just see the lights around it. And I got lost. in the middle of the park. And I'll never forget, I called my friends. I said, hey, like, guys, I'm freaking out. My phone's about to die and I'm lost in the park. And like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know which way to go. Like, I'm completely turned around. I don't know where to start. My phone's gonna die. I don't have the address to my apartment. I'm not gonna get home. So they literally, they were in their car. They had to drive around their park, turning on their flashing lights so that I could find them and then walk to their car so they could give me a ride home.
One embarrassing thing that I find super hilarious, my boyfriend's probably gonna be mad at me for telling this, but when I was on my second date with my now boyfriend, as we were leaving, we were like, I had an Uber waiting outside and I just looked at him, I just became overwhelmed with emotion and I was like, can I kiss you? And before I waited for an answer, I like reached up, kissed him, and then I ran away and drove off in the Uber. And he was kind of mad because he's like, you stole that moment from me. But yeah, I mean, I knew what I wanted, I guess.
I would probably say when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was just like in the store with my mom following her all the time. But I like turned away for a second and then started following some random woman for like a few minutes. And I was like, at some point I like tugged at her and just like, mom. And I was like, oh, that's not my mom. I was like panicking. And she noticed she was looking for me, but I like wandered off because I'm like an inquisitive child. And I was just so embarrassed by that because like I just tugged on this random woman's dress and just like, mom. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But we found each other again, so it's fine.
I think that one that jumps to mind is I was in a life skills course, and the teacher was like, okay, we're just gonna get comfortable, warm up, like get comfortable with some vocabulary that we're gonna be using in the sex ed unit. And so she's like, on a count of 3, I want you to repeat after me, and I want you to just say it loud and proud, be bold. And she says, penis. So she goes 1, 2, 3, and me being the teacher's pet that I was, literally screamed at the top of my lungs like, penis! And like no one else in the class, nobody else said it. And to this day, all throughout middle school I was known as penis girl because of it. So it's just awful.
I honestly, I don't know. I block all of these things out of my mind. I mean, I'm sure I've like been at a conference where I've forgotten like there was probably a conference where I was presenting some of my research and I completely forgot to include a note card and didn't remember what to say for a slide. But I'm pretty good at blocking out embarrassing moments from my head, so it's hard for me to come up with one.
I was 23 in my first job out of college ever. I was like the only girl on my team. I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder. I really needed to prove myself. I was in a sales role, and I walked into my first one-on-one with my boss, who is also a male, probably like 10 years older than me. I'm already like, I'm still nervous. I had just started this job maybe a couple weeks ago, and I walked into my first one-on-one with my my fly completely down. And my boss, he just didn't really know how to say it to me. He was like, Justine, I can see your fly is down. My underwear is showing. I had just gone to the bathroom and I was just mortified. I remember being like, oh my God, this is just the most embarrassing thing ever that's happened to me.
I'm all about being self-aggrandizing and poking fun at myself. So, I do get embarrassed, but, what I like to do is embarrass my teenage girls. I can think of that more easily. I mean, my wife and I, on our first actual date, I streaked, but I guess, I don't know that I was embarrassed by it necessarily, but it was just a crazy story. And it was after that, I guess she said, okay, he's the one.
One of the most embarrassing things to happen to me, I was at a drag show with my best friends, and I was kind of picked to perform in a little competition with, the audience. And I had a little too much to drink, so I couldn't, I think they put Beyonce, and so I'm a huge Gaga fan, so I was like, give me Bad Romance, and they didn't, and they gave the girl after me Bad Romance. And I think rule number 1 when it comes to drag shows, like, you don't go on stage when others are performing, but I did, because at that point I was just like, all boundaries, there are no boundaries. And I got on stage, and one of the queens came and kind of like pushed me to the side and was like, this is not, your moment's over, girl. And so I remember just being so embarrassed that, like, 1, I didn't get the song that I wanted, but then 2, I made a fool out of myself in front of the audience. But I had a great time though.
Two stories come to mind. First is short and sweet. I ripped a fart during the SAT, and that was pretty brutal. You're just in the dead silent room, and just all of a sudden it just escaped, and that was pretty rough. Another time that still like makes me like cringe when I think about it was freshman year of college. I was in the dining hall, and there was always this one table at Tulane where all the athletes sat, and I had a friend named Charlotte who was on the track team. And I went up and I, gave her a side hug. I, gave her approach from the side, kind of touched her ribs right there, gave her a little hug. And it turns out it wasn't her. And it was just some random girl of a similar height and build. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I had to like slink away after thoroughly embarrassing myself at this like tennis girl table or something. That was brutal. It still keeps me up sometimes.
So when I was giving birth to my son Charlie, the nurses there asked if we could allow the student nurses and all the residents that were training in OB to come and witness our birth. So we had about 13 people kind of huddled around, and the doctor was looking at me and she was telling me to push, and my husband and I had like music playing, and of course like I'm trying to entertain everyone, and I started laughing so hard that I peed in my doctor's face while I was pushing.
I would definitely have to say one of the biggest embarrassing things that has ever happened to me is, I played Division I lacrosse, and I was an amputee at the time, and we were full field scrimmaging, and I was sprinting down the field, and literally my leg flew off and hit another player. And I think I was so embarrassed in the moment that I just was like, I'm done for the day. I need to quit. I can't do this anymore. And, that's something I had to get used to, I had to adapt to, and just be comfortable with is, these things aren't glued to my body, so they're going to come off.